Hi all, Wind here. So in today's video, I'm going to try and tackle one of kind of the health checks you might bump into as you are maintaining your platform, and how you can essentially look to resolve this with fix scripts to essentially clean up your platform. And this all kind of aids in platform governance, and essentially the one we're going to target for today's video is cleaning up duplicated names in update sets. Now, I wrote an article just to kind of show the scripts and the steps that we would do, but we will go into the scripts and I'll kind of walk you through and explain what the script is doing, and then we'll kind of show how this works. So hopefully it helps you in maintaining your environment and keeping that platform authenticity. So how could duplicate names for update sets occur? So there's mainly two ways. So firstly, there is no validation of names on the update sets when essentially developers are creating them manually, so it can be caused by manual error. However, usually in organizations you have a naming convention that you generally publicize to your developers to ensure this doesn't happen, and since they're unique in versioned, developers usually would not do it. But in the event that it is done, this will allow it essentially to be cleaned up in production. If you run your releases and essentially have this as a health check right after the release, just to confirm there isn't any duplicate named, and we'll go over the update set in a moment. And then if there are, you can essentially look to clean them up with the second script to essentially have no duplicated named update sets. Secondly, however, this could also occur if you have watched one of my earlier videos in which we've used the add to update set UI action, and in that script that's essentially been provided by the community, the developer community, that does create the update sets with the same name. Now you could modify that script to ensure that doesn't occur, but if you've used that already and pushed it up, then the issue is in production, and changing it in that script is not going to help those data. So this video is to kind of show how we can clean those up, and then the best thing to do is to modify the update script going forward. But essentially, if you have these fixed scripts, if they do occur again, you could always clean them up for production. So it's up to you in terms of which way you want to manage that, but I would recommend doing both if you do have the capacity to essentially change both of those. So let's go into the solution. So firstly, we do need to identify the update sets that have a duplicate name. So essentially this script here, which we'll go into in a moment, the fix script will identify what are the duplicate update set names, and we've used a few conditions just to ensure we're not getting default in there, because default is essentially your default update set that comes with a platform, and that could be from different products. So essentially you might just want to leave that alone, but if you do want to include that, you can, but I would just generally leave it alone and just focus on the ones that we're essentially creating. And then just going down, so there's another script that I wrote just to create some sample duplicate update sets in case you don't have any and do want to test out the function very quickly in a test environment. This will just go and create 20 update sets with the same name, so you can see it essentially working, and I can go over that and we'll show how that works in today's video too. And then lastly, we essentially run a script to rename duplicate update set names using some version prefixes. Now you can change this as you like, but I've just chosen to go with a v1 v2 if the name is the same, and we do some ordering just to ensure that we're kind of doing it in a nice systematic way, and we'll go over that during the explanation of the scripts. So that's essentially the steps. So let's go to the first script. So identify duplicate update set name. So essentially we've created a fixed script for this, and this is a great way just to essentially be able to have this in a record, and then you'd get your admin to essentially run this fixed script in production after a release or just during BAU activity. So let me full screen this, and then we'll go into some of the code. So the first few lines, so say lines 1 to 5, essentially all we're doing is just going to go get the aggregate of the number of update sets that essentially are duplicate records. So here we're grouping by name because we're that's what we're targeting, update sets where the name is duplicated, and then also we're filtering out if the name is equal to default in line 3, and then we're essentially just adding that count aggregate to ensure to get the count of how many actual articles are kind of duplicated in that sense. We've got a count in line 9 where we're just looking to count the total duplicates, because it would be really nice just at the end to see how many we've got, and then we essentially do our iteration. So if our query above does have next, we essentially look to retrieve that aggregate count. Now the count here, we're converting it to a usable number just to ensure we don't have any unexpected outcomes by keeping it as a potential string. So just converting that to an integer as a 10 passing decimal is recommended. And then essentially if the count is greater than 1, so there is more than one duplicated record. So if it's one name that's unique, it essentially won't be in our report, and that's great because it's not a duplicate. But then essentially here we print out the name, the count, and just using some kind of text format just to show it a little bit nicer, and you'll see that in the logs. And then essentially what we do is we count the total duplicates, and we just minus 1, because essentially we're saying the first one shouldn't be counted as a duplicate, it will be the original, and then the rest we could identify how many duplicates they are of that name. And then we essentially list the sysids of duplicates. It's not needed, but I thought it would be a nice touch, because that essentially defines the uniqueness of the update sets. And then essentially we just print it out. So let me run this and show what it looks like. Hopefully that all makes sense. So run this and proceed. Okay, so you can see here duplicate update sets names, total duplicate update sets, there's 0 in the current out of the box system. So as mentioned, let's create some sample duplicate update sets. So if I go to my second script here, so this one's very simple, I won't spend too much time into it, but essentially I'm just going to create duplicate update set name and create 20 of them, and just reiterate and just essentially put them in a state of complete. Because we're looking to run this in production, really only ones we're focusing on are the complete update sets, but if you do want to change that to include all, you can. Yeah, so if we run this and proceed, this has now essentially created 20 duplicate update sets, and we can check that. So if we go back to our first script to identify duplicate update set names, if we just run this script, proceed in the background, or proceed, apologies, you can see now we have test duplicate update set of count 20. So essentially here we can see that there are 20, and you can see the format here, we can see total duplicate update sets are 19. So let's do this. So now essentially if we go to our sample data and let's say number 2, so I'm just going to create another 20, but I'm going to change the name. So essentially we should see total kind of 38, kind of minusing the 2 originals. So let's proceed. Let me just make sure I save that one more time. Okay, right, and let's proceed, and that has created those as well. So now in this update, in this fixed script, if I just run this, I can see that there are 20 there, there are 20 here, and there is a total of 38. So that's exactly what I wanted to see. So now let's clean these up. So essentially, if I go to my cleanup fix script, and let's talk through this. So over here, first thing we want to do is look to essentially create an object here. So we're essentially going to call it update set names, and then essentially what we're looking to do is go and find all the names with duplicates, excluding default once again. And you can do this in one script, but I like to separate the two. So essentially we identify them, and now we're going to go and find them and then fix them. Essentially, same thing here, just essentially change that count to an essential number, just to make sure we're dealing with numbers here. And then essentially where you do find more than one, essentially get that update set name and essentially identify the true to say it's duplicate. And in the next step, we're going to process each duplicate group and essentially just start to rename them. So as you see here, there's a few things we do to just kind of organize them. So we order by the oldest first. Essentially, the oldest will essentially be the original one if there is no parent. So this is essentially the condition we kind of add within our script, is to ensure if the update set has a parent, then that is, or is not a parent, and essentially is the parent of other children update sets, it will be the original. Otherwise, if that relationship doesn't exist, which it doesn't exist with the sample data we've created, then allow the oldest to be the original, essentially. So as we scroll down, we essentially push those update sets into our array here for records, and then essentially if the records are greater than one, process the name, and if the parent exists, use it as the original. Otherwise, use the first record. And then in the step 52, we essentially iterate through those records and add our name key and versioning. So as you can see here, we've got our name key, and we essentially add our version, which essentially is just reiterating through this variable here. So it will start with 1 and essentially just keep incrementing as we go through the groups. So I hope that kind of makes sense, and let me just show it working. So let's come out of the full screen mode and let's run the fix script and proceed. So over here we can see keeping the original test duplicate update set, so it's kept the following update set, and then it's renamed the following 8. And if we just scroll down to the end, we can see here that the message counts reached 37, and essentially we've completed the script. So let's go see what this looks like. And one way we can test this, so we can go back to our duplicate fix script, run, proceed, and we can see that we have no more duplicates. So we can see the script working. And let's go see the records in our update set table. So we go to update sets. This was cached before I created the sample data. So now if I just refresh my page, I can see that there are following test duplicate update sets. So there's the original one, there's the original number 2, and then as we kind of can go on, we can see that there's 2v1, v10, and so on and so forth. So because it's ordered by numbers, it's kind of got this not really by order because of it, but as you can see here, all of them essentially renamed. So that's it for today's video. I hope that's helped. Please let me know if you've got any questions. I hope that just provided a little bit of insight of how we could use fix scripts to kind of support some of the data changes, and also just kind of maintain the platform health. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Bye.